Hey guys, and welcome to Solar Cabin Channel and Off-Gridder News. And today we're going to talk about the weather, and we're going to talk about my finger, some subjects that be of interest to off-gridders, homesteaders, anybody that lives an outdoors lifestyle. One of the things that I'm going to talk about is tetanus and lockjaw, and I'm going to weave all this together into kind of a news story for you that I think you might find interesting. Now, if you haven't noticed, if you haven't been outside, you've probably noticed that we've had some really weird weather, as some very frequent strong storms, lots of snow, lots of wind, very cold temperatures. The wind chill factor's been dropping down to like minus 30 some places. And this just happened to be a time when I probably figured I should talk about that, because we've been having really weird weather here where I live up in the Rocky Mountains. We don't have the snow that we normally get. Normally by this time of year we would get at least a foot or so of snow. Last winter was really hard and we got, upwards of 2.5 feet of snow. This winter we've got less than an inch of snow all winter. Now, it's been cold, not extremely cold, but it's been cold, but we didn't get the snow like we normally do. So that's really weird weather for here. But a lot of people, especially along the East Coast, they're having tremendous storms, a lot of flooding, some of it rain, some of it snow, and they're getting, of course, that lake effect, which always affects them in that area, so they get even heavier snow than a lot of places. But even places like Portland, Oregon, and up in Oregon, and my kids happen to live up there with my grandson. They live up in Oregon, and they just, for a couple of days, I didn't hear anything from them, which is unusual, because we usually talk just about every day or text just about every day. Well, he contacted me this morning to say that their phones had been out because they had tremendous windstorms, and apparently it was so strong that it knocked out the satellite towers, the cell phone towers, so he couldn't even text me to tell me that they were without power or anything like that. So we spent this morning talking about some ways that he needs to be getting prepared, because these storms are going to get more frequent. They're going to get more strong. So you're going to have more power outages, off-grid power outages, where you may have to be off-grid whether you want to be or not. So he was lucky. Him and his family were lucky because they do have an apartment. He's got a nice apartment. He works in as a tech for a security company. And the apartment that he's in has a wood fireplace. You don't find those very often in apartments anymore. But his apartment has a wood fireplace, and he had wood on hand, so he was able to build a fire. And also, he had some camping gear, which he likes to camp and is an outdoorsman like me. And so he used his camping gear to fix himself a meal. They pulled their mattresses in the living room in front of the fireplace, and they were able to cook, and they were able to stay warm and make it through this blackout. And their power's back on now. Generally, a power blackout may only last a few hours, but sometimes it may last a day. Sometimes it could last a lot longer. If it's a really serious natural disaster or something like that, you could be without power for 3 or 4 days, a week, or even longer. All right. And so one of the things that I'm going to help him with is I'm going to set him up with a power station and make sure that he's got some tools and supplies, so that if this happens again, which is likely, he'll be even better prepared than he was. But I'm proud of him because he was prepared and was able to keep his family warm. And, they were able to cook a meal, which is basically what you need for survival. They had water on hand. They had bottled water and things on hand. So he was in a better shape than a lot of people are. One of the things that I've really stressed in my videos lately is setting yourself up with a power station, so that you have some way to power at least some small appliances and gadgets, large enough maybe to cook a meal, to keep a 12-volt fridge running so you can keep your food fresh. Some people have medications that they need to keep fresh, like insulin. You could use a 12-volt fridge for, or something like that. I talk about that a lot in my videos, folks. So if you're interested in how to set up one of those systems, please go watch those videos. Then you'll be better prepared if you have a power outage or a weather emergency or a natural disaster emergency. Now, talking about the weather and my weather here, I said we got about an inch of snow. But I walked outside to play with my dogs in the yard, and I happened to step on that slippery new snow, and my feet went right out from under me. I come down and I caught myself with my hands, but when I did, as you can see here, I also managed to catch my little finger, my pinky, on some rusted sheet metal that was sitting on the ground. Not good, okay? Now, what I'm going to tell you right now is off-gridders and adventurers, outdoor people, we get cut all the time, but you can get a cut anywhere. Doesn't really matter. But the problem is cut, even if it's not bad enough that it needs stitches, and it's not bleeding really bad. If it is, then you need to go in and see a doctor and get some stitches put in it. But it may not be really bad. It may not be bleeding and may not need stitches, but there is still a risk of getting what is called tetanus. Now, tetanus is a bacteria. Let me just read here what it tells you about it. It says, tetanus is an infection caused by a bacteria called Clostridium tetani. When these bacteria enter the body, they produce a toxin that can cause painful muscle contractions. Another name for tetanus is lockjaw. It often causes a person's neck and jaw muscles to lock, making it hard to open the mouth or swallow. Now, interesting history of this, because I learned about tetanus a long time ago, and I worked as an EMT, but I also come across it because that happens to be the illness that killed Thoreau's brother. Now, if you're not familiar with who Henry David Thoreau is, you really need to go read his books, because Henry David Thoreau is kind of the father of homesteading and off-grid living. Okay, he set an example by going off in Walden's Pond in his book, set himself up a little cabin, and was living there an off-grid and sustainable life. But part of his reason for doing that was because his older brother, I don't think he was very much older than him, his older brother contracted tetanus from a shaving razor, probably a rusty razor, maybe a dirty razor. And tetanus, back then, there was no shot that you could take to stop the tetanus bacteria. And so his brother died from what they call lockjaw or tetanus. And it is still an extremely risky and dangerous illness. Because if you don't get a tetanus shot, your immune system is going to really have a very difficult time of fighting that off, even if they give you antibiotics and everything like that. 1 in 4 people that get tetanus die, okay? And the 3 that survive are probably going to have serious issues, a lot of disability. It can go to the brain. It can cause all kinds of severe muscle spasms, even so bad that it actually snaps your spine. It's that bad. All right. So it is not something that you want to get. And you can get it from just a simple cut, especially if that cut is on the ground and contacted with the ground. It could be a nail puncture, not just a cut. Anything rusted metal, anything that might have animal feces on it, like horse pasture, which just happens to be where I got my cut, was in my old horse pasture. And so you don't want to take a risk with this. So I went down this morning, and what I did is I called around. I know a clinic visit is going to cost a lot of money. They charge just $70 just to walk into a clinic, and then the shots on top of that and whatever else they're going to do. So I called around to the pharmacist because I thought, well, maybe they can give me a tetanus shot without having to go through a clinic visit. And sure enough, our pharmacies here, and yours probably there, can give you a tetanus shot generally, and it will probably cost you a lot less because you're not paying for the clinic visit and stuff like that. So I went down this morning, and you want to try to do this within 48 hours of whenever you got the injury. I went down this morning. I got cut yesterday. It was Sunday, so I wasn't going to bother trying to do it then. I went down first thing this morning, got my tetanus shot. Cost me $45, but believe me, that's well worth it. If you haven't had a tetanus shot in the last 5 years, you probably want to get a tetanus shot. They recommend at least every 10 years. But if you've had any type of injury that you're concerned about where you could contract tetanus, even if it's been a shorter amount of period of time, I would recommend that you go ahead and get a tetanus shot, because you do not want to deal with the side effects and outcome of a tetanus bacterial infection, because it will kill you, and it is not curable. And even if you survive the tetanus, you're probably going to have disabilities for the rest of your life as a result. So don't mess around with tetanus. All right, so that's how that all weaves together. We got weird weather going on. We got snow. Snow is slippery. Be really careful out there, folks. If you haven't, and remember, if you're driving, if you haven't driven in snow before, slow down for heck's sakes. I see so many people trying to race and drive just as fast as they do on dry roads as they do on slippery roads. That's stupid, all right? Use some common sense. Slow down, especially slow down way ahead of stops. Don't tailgate other cars, things like that. And if you're out walking, watch where you're going. I almost stepped on some ice at the grocery store this morning where the water had just melted and then refroze. And so I stepped out of my car and I didn't realize that I'm standing right on black ice. All right, and so I was very careful moving around, holding onto my car until I got off the ice. It can happen really fast, folks. You can just step off of your porch and slip and fall, break a hip, hit the back of your head, knock yourself unconscious, do all kinds of damage. All right, be aware. Winter means some hazards out there you need to be prepared for. Also, again, I really highly recommend that you have some type of backup power source for an off-grid experience if your power goes out at your houses, folks, because it's going to happen. And we're having these storms all over. They're having them all along the East Coast, Texas, Oregon, California. They're all having these power blackouts as a result. Some of it's because of heavy snowstorms, but a lot of it's just because of wind. The wind has really been tremendous out there, and wind knocks down power stations all the time. It knocks down power poles. And you also have a lot of accidents with people driving that also knock down power poles. So there's a lot of risk out there, and you're probably going to end up with a power outage, and you need to be prepared for it. All right, folks, that is my off-gridder news for today. I've got my shot. My finger's going to recover so I can get back to doing my workouts, and everything will be fine here, and I hope everybody is happy and healthy on your homesteads. Have a great day.